Powell said tragic consequences if there's no stimulus. Within a couple of hours, President Trump had rejected the Democrats' bill and said, not only rejected the bill, but rejected the talks themselves. If we don't get stimulus till February, March, if it doesn't happen till after the election, is this something that could drain enough out of the economy or not refuel it enough that it derails the recovery that's underway?
It certainly creates a downside risk. One of the unusual things about this downturn is normally when you have a severe downturn, household income falls off and consumer spending falls off, and then you get a sort of a downward cycle. We didn't have that here, in that even though we had a severe downturn in the second quarter, household income stayed relatively steady and consumer spending stayed strong. It shifted, but it stayed strong. And that's why for the year, the U.S. is going to wind up having a less serious contraction than other countries. We believe now, and we've been getting more optimistic over the last couple of weeks, that U.S. GDP will contract by something like 2.5% for the year. That is a much better performance than other countries, and a big reason for that is this fiscal relief, unemployment benefits, income relief. And so right now, people are still spending, but they're doing it out of savings from the benefits they've received. And I think people have in their minds that something's going to get approved at some point. If that were to not happen at all, and people got that idea, I think you'd see it show up in consumer spending, and would start to have, the danger is we'd start to have the fall off we normally see in a downturn, and that may lead to other negative effects that will meaningfully slow the recovery. And that's what we're watching for and concerned about.
Is it possible that, as one Fed official said, one of your colleagues, that there really is enough stimulus that when you made your Federal Reserve plans, when the CARES Act was passed, when all the stimulus started at the beginning of the year in March, people were assuming an even bigger downturn? As you said, it isn't as bad, and 10 to 14% of GDP in spending was allocated. Now it's not as weak. We're still going to spend the same amount of money. Is it possible that we're maybe a little too worried about this and the economy can keep on the same track you're talking about?
I mean, my own judgment, and this is one of these things we'll know better in hindsight, how long the relief lasted. I would guess we're going to need some additional relief at some point here. Can we go on for a while without additional fiscal stimulus? We could. Could we go on indefinitely? I would guess you're going to see a weaker recovery if that were to happen. That'd be my judgment and our judgment here at the Dallas Fed.
You know, let's say there's no stimulus for several months, and the economy does need some more help, or it seems like the prudent thing to do. What about bond purchases? That was a subject of debate, apparently, at the last Fed meeting in the middle of September. You can't cut rates more. That's the logic. If you have to do something, bond traders are saying the Fed's going to be forced to buy more bonds in much larger quantities, potentially. What do you see?
Yeah, I don't see that right now. And here's the issue. Of all the issues facing the U.S. economy, one of the problems we're having is not that rates are too high. Term rates along the curve are historically low. And bond buying is done in order to further depress term rates, and at the moment, I don't see that as the issue or a significant issue. It may become one later, but it isn't one right now. The problem is this: the Fed has a lot of tools, and we have more things we can do, but our tools primarily ease financial conditions. They make it easier to borrow money. Our tools are not well suited when you have an income loss, and we need to make up an income loss. And there's two areas. There's individuals that have lost their jobs who've lost income, and there's states and municipalities that can borrow and are using the private markets and are borrowing. The problem is they have a fiscal hole, and they need to balance their budget, and they need to cut expenses if they don't get any relief, because they have a fiscal hole. Borrowing more money is not going to solve their problem either. So I think the Fed can do more, and I'm sure we will look at all our options, but those aren't substitutes for fiscal policy.
So how about shifting the composition of the bond purchases that are currently in place to more longer dated bonds?
Again, I would say if you look at the 10-year and the 30-year, could they be lower? Yes. Is it an impediment
Okay.
to business operations, investment? Mortgage rates are historically low. I just think we have to recognize that that we're already buying a significant amount of bonds as it is, and I'd be skeptical about the benefits of doing more myself.
Just want to ask another quick question on this debate that's going on. The Fed was apparently you're going to be talking about this even more seriously at the November meeting. Esther George said the Fed needs to give details on guidance when it comes to the Fed's intentions with regard to bond purchases to ensure effectiveness, transparency, accountability. So what's going on here? What's the question you guys are grappling with?
I'll speak for myself on that. I think we're buying still a substantial amount of bonds every month, both treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. I think we could say more about what our plans are going forward, but my own view is I right now would be hesitant to see us doing more in that area because I don't see the benefits.
Okay.
I could see how it would further add fuel to the financial markets. I'm more skeptical how much it would help the real economy.